January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month in the United States. This is a time that we all come together, groups, organizations, nonprofits, individuals, and we focus our attention on what exactly human trafficking is and the landscape of it in the United States. And we share resources and we just raise awareness with the public to get them, into this idea that this is happening in every single town, city, and rural area across America. I can't think of a better warrior to join us today than Dotti Groover-Skipper. I mean that Dotti lives and breathes human trafficking. She is the true definition of a warrior. She does this 24/7, 365. I'm going to read exactly some words she sent me from her bio. There is so much to cover with Dotti, but let me just give you a little bit of a flavor before we jump into conversation. Dotti believes in dynamic living through servant leadership. Since graduating from the University of Florida, South Florida, she has facilitated expert programming to impact positive policy change and substance abuse, addiction, and sex trade. Dotti has helped to develop numerous sustainable community coalitions. Her experience as an NFL cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins, 1978 to 1980, yay, helped set the foundation for her life's work. Dotti is the founder of the HeartDance Foundation, which serves men, women, and children engaged in the sex industry. This is the most important thing. God bless you, Dotti. The website is heartdancefoundation.org. Warriors, let's speak now with Dotti. Dotti, welcome to the Warriors.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you today.
Well, look, the honor is all mine. You're taking the time. Happy New Year. We have a lot to cover. I'm very encouraged in 2024. Yes, everything's overwhelming. We have a lot going on in the country, but I feel very encouraged. And I'll tell you, Dotti, that's because more people are being educated about trafficking. More people, I think, are waking up. More people are realizing it happens in their home with all the different devices kids are on, they're on. It's a good time to really focus and seek. But more of what you do, Dotti, because you actually help that victim. I'm sitting in the middle of New York City, and one of my major complaints is what is trickling down to that person, to that victim or survivor, resources or housing, food, job training, education. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, let's hear about you, Dotti. What do you want to share about yourself?
Oh, my goodness. I guess to begin with, I have been in the anti-trafficking trenches for over 4 decades, 40 years ago. And it was when I was teaching a self-esteem class in one of the most marginalized communities in Tampa Bay. And there was a 13-year-old girl in my class who was so angry. It disturbed me so much that I had the organization who hired me find out a little background information on this 13-year-old girl. As it turns out, this 13-year-old lived with her grandmother along with her 4-year-old sister. And both of the little girls, the 13-year-old and the 4-year-old, were being sold for sex in exchange for drugs almost every night. And the little 4-year-old had a sexually transmitted disease. I can't tell you how that shook my world. 40 years ago, I had never experienced anything so evil. And I just believe that the Lord plucked a string in my heart that day to fight for those who haven't yet learned how to fight for themselves, to rally against injustice, and to really open my eyes and advocate for everyone to open their eyes and see the invisibles. So that's my foray into human trafficking. There was no label for it back then. 40 years ago, people would look at me like I was crazy. So I too, Lynn, I am just so elated that starting about 10 years ago, the public really started becoming more and more aware of this issue. So I am so elated that now there are so many warriors out there in the trenches doing their best to bring resolve to this hideous crime that we now know as human trafficking. So that's
Dotti, where do I start with you? But that is, just so you know, I call it slavery because we have more people enslaved. It's pure slavery. I used to stay away from that word, but then about 8 months ago, I'm like, no, this is enslavement.
It is.
I like everybody else pretty much, Dottie. I used to think, oh, this is something that happens in all these other countries,
Mm-hmm.
like Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
Philippines, and all that. I didn't even know, like thinking I'm pretty smart about things until I was working with somebody who, a client who was writing a book about domestic violence. And in doing the research, kind of intersected with human trafficking. And that's when I kind of got this calling. I like to say it was like a nun who, like,
Yes,
like we have to do it.
that's right.
There's because people are like, were you trafficked? And I'm like, no, I have to do this now. And also, I want my 3 adult children to be proud of me. That's a little side story, but
Right.
just
Right.
no. But at this point in my life, because my background is my first job out of college was a music business, entertainment business, all of that behind the scenes and production. This is much more fulfilling. But
Yes. Yes.
that story about the 13-year-old girl, I kid you not, Dottie, is what came across my computer, and I got tears in my eyes
Okay.
because I'm like, that was for Dottie, the kicking off point that did it
Oh,
for her. And there are so many 13-year-olds and 4-year-olds,
yes. Yes.
you know,
All ages. It knows no boundaries.
yes, all ages.
All ethnicities, no
But see,
social,
that's what
economical
people exactly. It
backgrounds. Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter socioeconomic, skin color. It doesn't matter if you come from what's considered a well-to-do, family or community. It is
Very,
affecting. Now we're in 2024. Everybody. Um, let's go back to now. You were teaching this self-esteem. Was that during the cheerleading time?
that was after my cheerleading times. And why I believe that the being a cheerleader for the NFL was so transformational for me is because I saw things then going to parties and being in that arena that now I know was human trafficking. I didn't know it at the time, but it taught me being in that whole arena taught me what lines I was willing to cross and what lines I weren't. And I'm very, very blessed to have, not crossed very many lines. But I saw many, many young women around me that were. And even back then, being a mother hen or a mentor to some of these young women who, even though they might have been a cheerleader for the NFL, they had no self-esteem whatsoever and would buy into the deceit and the lies that predators would use on them. So even back then, I was very astute, thank goodness, to those and helped mentor those who were falling prey to some of those predators. So that's why I like to include that in, my bio, because it was a transforming time for me. I really found out what I was made of, back then. And then probably a couple of years later, coming back to teaching these self-esteem classes and seeing what I saw, I feel like this chose me. I didn't choose it, but it has been my life's calling. And I don't know what happened to that 13-year-old and her 4-year-old sister. I kind of shut down for a little while after that. I was so traumatized by that because I had never experienced anything like that. But in my mind's eye, these precious little girls are productive women today. And I'm just trusting that the seeds that were planted in that self-esteem class long, long ago were watered and nourished by others. And that hopefully they're vibrant, productive women today.
Dottie, I like to say because it is so overwhelming, this whole, subject, this exploitation, this crime. If we get up, this is how I handle it, and we help one person a day, then we've done our job. To think about precious, God's children, precious babies and children abused like this is, I can't let my mind even go there. Like I stay on the work side of it to get things
Right.
done, because that is the one thing that is very disturbing to me, when I think of babies, but we're going to leave that for a minute. Now, let me ask you something. I'm glad you brought up about the NFL, and I'll tell you why. I wanted to know about that because coming from the music business, I too did not know. Now, in retrospect, like, okay, you're obviously a warrior. You were a warrior then. I consider myself, I didn't know it, but I consider myself a warrior also in the music business because I saw so much.
Yeah.
But now I know, oh my goodness, fast forward, 40 years later, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, wow. Like I
Mhm.
didn't know, or we just smiled and went about our business kind of thing. But wow, what really went on. And also in the entertainment business and still goes on.
It
Um,
still goes on, right? It has
and
come kind of, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no,
it
no, no, go
has
ahead, go ahead.
kind of gone full circle for me because about 3 years ago, the Miami Dolphin Foundation, I had kept in touch, with the Alumni Association. They invited me to come down to Miami and train the current cheerleaders on human
Ooh.
trafficking. So I'm still in touch with them. They know what I do. Every now and then they'll reach out and ask me questions or things along those lines. So I feel like it has come full circle to me. And maybe that's why I was a cheerleader so many years ago. I don't know. But to me, it has come full circle.
And you know what, Dottie? That's part of my staying positive. I'm encouraged by hearing that because it has come full circle that you are now able to use your experience, to use your expertise, what you've learned, right? We didn't know,
Right.
as you pointed out, we didn't know this was human trafficking, right? And we just
Right.
kind of went along with things. We didn't, but now we know better. Now, let's fast forward. I don't know how you fit all this in. You have so many accolades, you have so much going on. You formed HeartDance Foundation. You're a mom of 7.
Yes.
You're a grandmother. Fill us in. What happened?
Well, I married my high school sweetheart 37 years after we broke up in high school. So that's a whole nother story in
Oh,
itself.
that's another program. I like
That's a
that.
whole nother story. We've
Oh, I
been on
love
a
that
couple of
though.
shows telling
That's
our
a movie of the week too. Yeah.
unusual love story, but we
Good.
reconnected and we've been married 15 years now. I have 3 biological children. He has 4. So that's how we have 7. I didn't birth all 7 children, but I founded HeartDance Foundation. It took me a while because after this incident with the 13-year-old, I volunteered for sexual assault centers and things along those lines. But, again, there was no human trafficking label back then. But the Lord just really kept putting it on my heart to quit my job. At the time, I was working as the anti-trafficking director for the state for the Salvation Army and doing relatively well, loved what I did, just, educating all the Salvation Army locations around the state on human trafficking. But I very clearly felt I needed to step away and start HeartDance Foundation to serve victims and survivors of human trafficking. And that's exactly what we do. But our specific mission is to really go and seek those who we feel might be a potential victim or a victim of trafficking. So we go into the strip clubs of Tampa Bay and we minister to the women in the clubs. And these are the invisible, unseen, forgotten, misunderstood women, many of them under a pimp or trafficker's control. So we go in the clubs, we go into the dressing rooms of the strip clubs, bringing gifts and shining the light of hope, and just to let them know that we see them and they are made in the image of God and they are of great dignity, value, and worth. That's all. And for maybe 5 minutes, we have the opportunity to speak truth into them. And if they're ready to get out of the life, we meet them at a different location when they're ready, and we help them develop a safety plan to get out. And then we have resources. Tampa Bay area is robust in anti-trafficking resources. So we will connect them to a safe home or to whatever resources they need, fly them back home where they want to go, whatever we feasibly can do as a small organization to help them. So that's, what HeartDance does. And we've just, from what we have seen going into strip clubs, many of these women are trapped. They have no other job skills. So they feel like they're truly trapped. They don't know what else to do. So we have started a part of HeartDance called HeartDance Connects, where we have partnered with a trade academy and some other organizations through the Tampa Chamber, working with businesses to take a chance on hiring some of these women. We put them through a workforce development program that we partner with another organization who does that beautifully. And a lot of these women have felony records because they've been forced to do criminal activity by their pimps. So it's very challenging for them to get jobs, sometimes even safe and secure housing. So we help them with this workforce development and get them into a job market so they can have decent, respectable employment and not have to depend on being sold every night. So that's what HeartDance is all about. We're all volunteer led and operated. I don't make a dime from it. I've never made a penny off of HeartDance, and that's kind of the vision that I had. That's why I've always worked, for other organizations while doing HeartDance. But now I've completely stepped away from all employment and focusing on HeartDance and how we can help these women find decent jobs.
That is, again, I don't want to sound like a complainer, Dotti, but I would always, talk to everybody about, we know it's all bad, all of this exploitation, trafficking. But what are we doing for the people? How are we getting them out and keeping them out? Because here in New York, most of the prostitutes, I work with prostitutes, women who dance in clubs. And again, these are things we don't put on Facebook and Twitter. We don't advertise those kind of things. But where are the resources for safe housing? Where are the resources for some, we got to keep them out. They're so traumatized. This is the other thing, Dotti. Do you find the public, when I go and I give speeches and I do all my speeches for free because I'm a great believer in
me as well.
What? It's all going to come back to me in another way. And it always comes back to me, whether I meet somebody, I get a donation, I help somebody. I'm a great believer. People have told me, turn it into a business. No, my way works. Call me my way works. So I'm glad to hear it just works for me. It's working for you, obviously. The public doesn't realize. They're like, oh, they could leave, dancing in the strip clubs. And I'm like, do you understand the psychological damage? Or, really, when you're just trying to pay that rent, or you might have kids at home, or you're under that control of a pimp.
Right.
All you can think about is doing what you're doing in the moment. There is no anything else. That's what the public. So what you're doing, actually, going there. Now they let you in the strip clubs. They don't try to keep you out.
The managers love us going in, which still blows my mind. We have a group of men that go out with us. We call them our men of valor. They don't actually go inside the club, but they stay outside it started as a source of protection for us, because I think the most dangerous part of going in with strip club ministry is standing in a strip club parking lot late at night. So these men started just being a source of protection. And what we have seen over the years is now these men of valor in the parking lot are building relationship with the valet guy, the door guy. The DJs will hear our men are in the parking lot and put the music on to play automatic and come out and talk with our men. We even have a strip club manager who is introducing us to women that he is helping to get out of the industry. So through our men, he is introducing them, and then the men turn the women over to us, to the women on the team. But it blows my mind. What we have learned anecdotally is the majority of the women that are working in strip clubs were sexually abused as children, and also the men that are working in that industry, again, anecdotally by our men of valor and what they've been told, men were sexually abused as children as well, and having a very difficult time climbing out of the pit of that environment. So our men come along and help these men, into better jobs, or getting them into a workforce development program like we do with the women. So we feel like it's slow going. And of course, they have to want the help.
Right.
Many of them don't even realize that they're victims, because it's just been their life for such a long time. But, we just feel like you said earlier, if we can just help one, if we get one at a time, do something instead of just talking about it. I've heard talk for 40 years, and it was just, okay, what can we do in our little small part of the world? What can we do to help bring resolve to this issue? So we feel like this workforce development
Perfect.
is really a great way to help them be, more self-sustainable, where they don't have to generate income from being in a strip club or walking the streets, or where they don't have to work 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs, just to get by, that they can actually learn a trade or a career that will help them, stay off the streets.
One of my goals for 2024 is finding more companies, more businesses that will help
Mine too.
train,
We
take
should
in.
work together.
Well, we are. What do you mean? We already are. We're going to, because what you're doing in HeartDance is exactly what is needed, Dottie. I'm sorry. I'm tired of the talk.
Yes,
I'm not subscribing to it anymore.
right.
Because as we both know, all of this is only escalating,
That's right.
right? And
Especially with the border, like you have talked about earlier.
oh,
It's
not
just
only the
getting,
border, everybody's online. So that's a separate program, but the kids are on the internet. They're being raised, I always like to say like 30 and under, they're in the internet bubble, digital safety.
that's right.
They
That's right.
they think this is normal. I work with a lot of schools across the country. Teachers always give me, information, report things to me. Kids think exchanging nude images is just fine. It's like part of
Right.
their, they don't know. So we've got this extortion. We've got all these other issues.
Right.
We have to train, the parents and the guardians and the grandparents, like what is really going on. I've decided more almost than the children. We have to get to the adults.
That's right.
And,
That's
and
right.
get
And I'm working with our local school district. I've been working with them for 15 years, but just over the last 2 or 3 years, Hillsborough County School District has really stepped up. They have a champion on the school board. For the last 3 years, in partnership with another organization called the No More Foundation that I'm on their board, we have trained over 100,000 faculty, students, staff in the Hillsborough County School District alone. And so we're training the students and training the parents, training, all staff in the school district, bus drivers, janitors, lunchroom ladies, teachers, the whole gamut. Everybody needs to know what to do, and then helping the school system have this protocol. Okay, so you see something, what do you do? So everyone in the school district knows, okay, if we see something suspicious, these are the steps that we have to take, to either report it or, just the protocol set up by the school system. So we have to get to our kids. Because
Yes.
there's so much grooming, and how to recognize the signs of grooming.
Well, see, that's just it. The indicators, like nobody even recognizes what those are. But you pointed out something very important, Dottie, and that is, then what do you do? For instance, if you're, I don't know, in an airport or in a store or something, and you think, I have a lot of people always say, well, I thought maybe, but I didn't do anything. It's still haunting me. That was 10 years ago. Like they'll tell me these stories.
Yes.
We have to, no, but we have to have these protocols in place. Florida does very, very well with, in my opinion, with human trafficking.
We have.
Even, I don't know if you follow Shared Hope at all. They put out their annual, they put out their annual report card.
Yes.
And, of course, you're always getting a good grade in Florida. My home state of New York is always failing. Everything. They will not allow it in the schools. That's why I do everything privately, little pod teaching, little parent groups on my own, because they don't want any of this.
And we had a
Even,
tough
even
time
the
as well.
private schools are very here, don't want it. And that to me is so upsetting.
Yes.
Sex education, sure, we'll talk about all that. Again, I go into a different program here,
Right.
but just, but also just, different groups, we talk different ways, right, Dottie? So just digital safety.
That's right.
That's where I get in the door a lot, just digital safety.
And
then I
that's
can
what we have
expand.
done in the school district over the last year, because we were getting pushback,
Yeah.
like, I don't want my kids learning. Well, okay, well, we call it SOS, staying safe online, or student online safety is our SOS program, student online safety. And that tends to get more parents involved. And then we can slip in details about grooming and trafficking. So that's how we're doing it. Just over the last year, that's how we decided to get to more parents.
Now, I decided 2 years ago, I'm like, human trafficking, people they just don't listen. They close their ears.
They
They
do.
don't want to hear about it. And then I'm like, oh,
And even
everybody can
churches.
relate. Digital safety, everybody.
Right. That's right.
And then I changed it. And, you feel out the audience. But I also get a lot of pushback. Here in Florida, very different from New York. People will sit in front of me and say, that doesn't happen here. I'm like, it's happening right now at your kitchen table online with your child. They're seeing it anyway. Like, so be open and honest. We really in 2024 have to be open and honest and have communication. I want to ask you, what is your faith or God? I don't know if you want to go into this at all. Does this play a big part for you in all of this?
My faith plays a huge part in this. I am a Christian, so I am a Jesus follower. But I'm open to all faiths, of course. Like, we have survivors or victims and survivors who are of different faiths, Buddhism, some atheists. And that doesn't faze me. It's, I have to live by what I feel is right for me, but we don't push any of that. Even going into the strip clubs, we have learned that many of the women were sexually abused by leaders of the church, sometimes by youth pastors on the pews of the church. So we never go in thumping the Bible or anything over their head at all. Our only agenda is to let them know that we see them and that we're there for them when they're ready. So faith plays a huge role for me. I think coupled with what I term growing up groover, with my childhood was wonderful. So I think, those two things continue to shape who I am today. I can't compartmentalize them. It's just all in one of who I'm made up to be. So I don't know if that was the answer that you.
No, Dottie, I'm loving everything you're saying. I truly am. It's funny. I turned to my husband the other day out of nowhere and I said, I don't think children feel safe at all today. And because I had a wonderful childhood, my husband had a wonderful childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, like, I was a kid during Vietnam, but I still remember, everybody talking about it, or it was on the news. But even we wore POW bracelets. I don't know, like in the fourth, fifth grade. I don't know, but we were like more aware. But I always, even though all this chaos was going on, I grew up in New Jersey, 13 miles outside of New York City, but we had tremendous riots. The whole race thing was coming out of Newark, New Jersey. And I remember hiding under our dining room table, like being scared. I would hear on the news or the radio, like they're coming towards our town where we lived. But our parents always made us feel safe. And my husband was like, you're right. In my house too, we always felt safe. Dottie, I think today kids don't feel safe at all.
They don't have that. They don't have that anymore. Yeah.
And that's why we have to, and this is my whole new thing, like have to really help the parents and grandparents and all family members. Like it's this digital partnership or family partnership. And I'm becoming very like introspective. I grew up Catholic. I grew up all girls school, nuns. I have no complaints. I'm going back to, sure, things happened in our day and back then and all that, but there was that foundation.
That's right.
Or there was that feeling of safety. And I don't think, and look at what the kids have to witness every day.
You're
Um,
right. You're right on that
you know,
because
it's
it's not
just,
safe.
and we don't judge, and there's parental autonomy, but I'm sorry, Dottie, people are just have been losing their minds in the last
Yeah,
few years,
it's
and
been
it's just what
crazy.
kids are seeing and replicating. So we have a lot of work to do with the adults, I think. Let me ask
Yes.
you, what, first of all, you need to, I hope you're going to be making a movie about all of this, because I see a
Oh,
total movie coming out of this,
you
or some
do.
sort of, don't you? Or
That would be wonderful, but I've not ever considered a movie.
well, you have to. And obviously, I think I saw somewhere a book. A book might be in your future. You're working on a book,
Yes,
thinking of a book.
I'm
Definitely
starting
a
on
book.
a book. I'm doing my first TED Talk, TEDx Talk in February. So I'm excited about that. And just, just open to whatever I feel like I'm being led to do.
Whatever
In this
comes your way.
in this season of my life, I'm mentoring some younger little whippersnappers, and I'm to continue to carry the mantle because, I'm in
Mhm.
my seasoned years and I want to make sure that the work
Wait, stop, Dottie. We're in our
seasoned.
best. We're in our
We are. We're
okay.
like fine. We're like fine wine. It just gets better with
I
age.
don't know about you, Dottie, but I feel the strongest now.
Oh yeah.
I feel the smartest now. I
Yes.
feel like at this age, who's going to stop me?
That's right.
Like I
It's
have
very
experience on my
liberating.
shoulders. I have 3 adult children. I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, I'm a warrior now. Like,
Yeah.
well, like I no,
Yes.
no, but I actually like this age.
I do too. And I
Um,
feel blessed that I've lived well, it's a whole nother story, but last year, this time I was in the hospital fighting for my life.
real
And
oh,
that's a whole nother story, but
that's another movie.
COVID attacked my heart.
Oh
And
no.
I was actually in Tampa General Hospital in the heart transplant ward for a period of
Wow.
time. But
Wow.
again, that's a whole nother story. But my heart is completely remodeled. I'm completely back to normal. And, going through that really gave me the introspection. Is that a word? Perspective. Um, that what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I want it to be, it's even
Me.
more intentional than it's ever been. So that's when I clearly heard I'm to write a book. I'm to really get this workforce development program really solid and off and ready to hand off to other people, as I get more and more seasoned. And doing this TED Talk has been a bucket list that came to fruition. And we're also trying to start a human trafficking treatment court in the 13th Judicial Circuit in Hillsborough County. So been working on that for 5 years. And I'm claiming that this is a year we're going to really make it happen. So those are the things that I'm just being very intentional about
Yes.
with, with what I have left in my life on earth until
Well,
I get
first
your
of all,
marching orders.
no, I'm so first of all, I'm so happy. I'm trying to think. First of all, my mother-in-law was a nurse for years at Tampa General.
Okay.
So yeah,
Great
and
hospital.
yeah,
Great
and
hospital.
my husband worked in the day with Pam Bondi and all that back in the day
Yes.
when they were
Yes.
young prosecutors and all this
Yes.
stuff.
In fact, when she was
Um,
Attorney General, she appointed me to the Statewide Human Trafficking Council the very first year it was legislatively formed. And I stayed on that council until about 3 years ago. So anyway, Pam Bondi and I just adore her.
no, I'm so happy. I saw that in your bio. I mean, you do have so many accolades and different. I'm really in awe of you because the work you're doing is what needs to be replicated all over the United States.
Well,
This type of work.
and there are a lot of people
And
doing.
there are, but I don't know. There are, but I say there's only a handful really getting the job done. Now, I don't want to be too critical. Um, yeah, and I understand, the common complaint is, and it's warranted, like resources. People need
Yeah,
resources. Where are
right.
we gonna, what do I hear in New York? Lynn, we have nowhere to put people.
Yeah,
We
that's true. All over the globe. Yeah.
all the time. Okay, we don't have enough staff, even if we had a place. Okay. So we know we have all of that work cut out for us. Let me ask your opinion about, first of all, I'm so happy you're healthy, you're
Thank
a
you.
warrior. Daddy,
Yes.
You're doing your work. You're intentional. You have great projects. Where's the TEDx talk? That's in Florida somewhere. Where is
In
that?
Florida. It's in a little town called Eustis, Eustis, Eustis. They've been around doing TEDx talks for over 10 years. And really, they're the only ones that I've been able to determine in the state of Florida that have been really, have sustained themselves for 10 years doing these talks. So I was supposed to do it last year, but I was in the hospital when I was supposed to be on stage. So they graciously saved my spot for this for this year. So I'm very excited to be finally talking about how my life was shaped by my faith and growing up Groover, what I just talked about, and then giving some examples of human trafficking and what I have seen, and then ways that everyday people can help with this, fight and bring resolve to this, because it takes all of us, and we need to end demand, of course, by prevention, ending demand, so we don't have to have all those safe homes and all of those programs, because if we train and teach people how to spot it and not fall prey to it, then we'll eradicate it. But that's hefty. That's a lofty goal.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to say to you, we don't talk about enough ending the demand, that aspect of it. We can't keep just putting the Band-Aid on everything.
That's right.
We have to get in there and end that demand. And it goes to another program like teaching.
Yes, it does.
A lot of programs here, Dotti. Teaching though our boys and men.
Yes.
So that's a whole nother program. But I do I work with, like, for instance, Nurses United Against Human Trafficking, and other healthcare, other hospitals we deal with. They'll say that these teenage girls are showing up with the strangulation marks, around their necks, because that is their first sexual experience, because the boys are seeing it online because of these algorithms. Again, I go into many programs with you, Dotti, here, but this is what's happening, fueled by the internet a lot. And I was shocked when I was hearing about the number of, we're talking about, beginning at age 11. I was shocked to hear that, I don't know if you heard this one or something like this, Dotti, that teens trying to commit suicide, of all people showing up across the country in emergency rooms, 40% are 11 and under that have tried, of all the suicide cases. 40%. And I remember I burst out when I first heard. I'm like, what do you mean? Where are they learning this, 11 and under? How are you learning about the internet? So that is something we have to take into account as well.
That's right.
Educate, safety. I like to say community creates change. I use it as a hashtag. At this grassroots community level is where the work gets done.
That's right.
But we also have to work on policy in Washington, enforce, urge. What are your feelings? Do you want to share anything about what's going on the federal level, or you want to stick to Florida with policies? Because on the federal level, Dotti, I don't have a lot of faith. It's just stalled.
It's absolutely stalled. I think the Earn It Act, all of that, those phone calls that, we both were on. I'm not even sure where that is now.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. Yeah. I know in Florida that, there are a couple of pieces of legislation that have been introduced, and whether or not they'll get anywhere, a lot of it is, how to keep kids and people safe online, but we go up against, free speech issues. So, I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss as to where we are, because it just seems to fall on deaf ears, especially at the federal level.
Right. Well, and also I like to always point out, Dotti, what we talk about, these issues, bipartisan, they don't belong to any political party. These are human rights abuses, right? And everybody, you would think everybody could get on board with keeping children, all people safe, and they just don't. And that argument, because every day I'm asking, what's going on in Washington? As people are, they're overwhelmed. They got other issues. What's more important than our precious children or people?
I know.
So we
I
have to keep fighting,
We do.
how we,
Children are our national treasure, and we
well,
need
but that's
to
just it. And how dare
treat them
people
like that.
abuse children? I'm glad, just to go back, that you pointed out a lot of our studies. We have studies that show many of them, people who do work in the sex industry and strip clubs and all that, they have so been abused as children,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and and then also I point out, we have so many runaways in this country.
Mhm.
We don't talk enough
Yes,
about that. And people don't understand a child who's abused at home, or a child who has a drug-addled, parent or something, like, they have to run away. I don't like to say that, but they have to get away.
yeah,
So we also have to always think of them. Where can we help them? Where can we put
that's right.
them? What are the resources for them? I'm beginning to think, Dottie, I've started saying it lately, like, we all have to look out for everybody's children. Now that's a very lofty kind of,
Mhm.
because people can barely take care of their own families these
Right,
days. But
right.
I really have come to this conclusion. They're all our children, and we
They
have to
are.
start doing things to
I
help
agree. That
everybody can
old
do something,
saying,
right?
"It takes a village." It truly does. We need to be a part of that village to help raise these children, to keep them safe.
Just to keep them safe. Now, let me ask you, how can the public help you? What would you like right now in your dream world? What would you like the public to do?
First, I think the first step is that everyone needs to see those individuals who cries, "Nobody sees me," because there's so many
Yes.
invisible ones. So I think that's the first step, to see those individuals, and to really, after you see them, to hear and act on the cry of this human soul and spirit that's been crushed. So I think that's the first thing, to actually see and then do something about it. I think we as a society have been conditioned to overlook those in need, and their invisibility affords us comfort, so we don't have to do anything. So I think everybody must see the problem, and raising awareness is huge. But again, there needs to be action behind all of the awareness. For I would urge everyone to learn the signs, of human trafficking, to find an organization in their own communities and come alongside them, to learn and then to
Mhm.
assist. And those are I think the two main things, is just get involved in some way, shape, or form. Everybody can do something. Um, Even report something suspicious if you feel it in your gut. Either call 911 or the National Human Trafficking Hotline. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you could be saving a life. Um, so, I think that's the basics, the very, very basics. And for HeartDance Foundation, um, I think for people to try to understand why we go into the strip clubs and what that has to do with human trafficking. I'm always trying to educate on, not all of the women, but a lot of the women that
A
you
lot.
find in the strip clubs are under pimp control, and that is a form of human trafficking. So getting people to understand that. Heart Dance could always use donations. Again,
There you go. I'm waiting for you to say, money doesn't hurt.
nobody draws a salary. Nobody makes a penny. So 100% of anything that Heart Dance gets goes right back out into those that we serve. We have churches that help, do our gift bags every month and support us financially as well. So donations will go a long, long way, because again, 100% goes right back out into those we serve, because we have no overhead, we have no employees, we have over, I would say, 60 to 70 volunteers.
Wow.
That in myself, we're all volunteers doing this work that, it's been my life's mission. So donations always help, even donations of children's books. The women love for us to bring in faith-based children's books that they read to their children. So even, new faith-based children's books would be huge, for our ministry. So
I
very,
think
very,
I think I can dig up some books for you.
you think so? Okay.
No, actually, I know so I'll take care of that.
Okay. In
Um,
Spanish and in English,
there you
preferably.
there you go.
Okay.
Spanish and English. Okay. Now I want to, I took this from your website, reclaiming dignity, value, and worth.
That's
And
our
that,
tagline.
like that's what it's all about.
It
I
is.
I don't know. First of all, you've got to write that book. So I know that's your intention.
I'm going to start on it after my TED talk.
Then we're gonna get that option to make a movie, okay, on the
Okay.
book. Because I really just want to take actions. You're the perfect example of a take action. And your organization. Again, the organization, everybody, HeartDanceFoundation.org. And when people say to me, Dotti, go away, I can't handle the subject, I'm like, okay, well, you can send $5. And then you've done your part. Like I try
That's
to,
right.
and
That's
then they
right.
think they've done something, but also just for the public to retweet stories, about the trafficking, about Heart Dance, about your mission. Any of that helps. Also, I'm always telling everybody here at the Warriors, house.gov, senate.gov, find out who represents you,
That's
and
right.
then also write to them, call them, email them. We do know they keep track.
They do.
If several people call on one issue, they're like, what do I put in the subject line? I'm like, we want child safety, human trafficking stopped, or end demand. It's very simple, but everybody in 2024 needs to step up. Any final words, Dottie?
Well, along those lines, I would recommend that everyone get to know who your district, legislative representative is, and they know me by name. So get to know them, whether you're going in for an ask or not. Just get to know them. You never know when you might need their assistance down the line. The last thing I want to say is Heart Dance, the name came to be. A lot of people ask me, how did you come up with that? And when my husband and I reunited after 37 years, my heart was just dancing, and it's still dancing. And it's such an incredible feeling that I wish that for every woman to have their hearts to dance again. So that's how Heart Dance came to be. So just thought I'd
Dottie,
throw
I'm
that.
glad you brought that up, because I remember thinking last night when I was reading and researching, I'm like, oh, I wonder if Heart Dance came from like the cheerleading, or Heart Dance was connected to the strip clubs and the dancing. And I forgot to ask you. So I'm glad you brought that up. And you know why we're twins, Dottie? Because that's what I say to other women, I talk to, and I want everybody to have what I have with my husband. That's my greatest wish.
Yeah,
And that's dancing hearts. And
that's right.
I feel very blessed, and lucky.
Yes.
It makes everything secure, worthwhile, best friends, that
That's
type of
right.
thing. I'm thrilled for you that I got to hear about that story someday. You came back
You will.
together. That must be a wonderful, wonderful story. Now, listen, Dottie, you got to stay well. No more, no more.
I've got my marching orders.
Tampa General, that's over for you. We need
That's
you
over.
out there. We need you out there
That's
writing
right.
books and talking. And when's the TED Talk? Is that scheduled?
February the 3rd, next month.
Oh, so it's right around the corner. Okay,
Right
I want to
around
make sure you put that on Twitter or something so I can retweet it
Okay.
and share that with everybody,
Will do.
or at least on the website so I can start sharing all of your information. Well, listen, this is January 3rd, National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Dottie, to kick it off with you is just tremendous, because you are a true warrior. You are stuck with me now. So
Yay!
And we have a lot of work to do, and we will. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping all of these people, Dottie, and for being so giving, and for really making a difference. You are exactly what is needed in this movement, if I can call it that, in helping people. I don't ever use the word, I don't like the word saving people. I just don't, that's
right.
me.
I don't use it because we're not saviors. There's only me, one of those. But
thank you. No, but it's just like getting in there, like intervening, preventing, helping, just offering, like, or around if you need us. Like, I think that's the greatest thing. Just kind of be there if somebody needs you. You're educating everybody, raising awareness. So, Dotti Groover-Skipper, thank you for joining the Warriors today. We'll speak again soon. Be well, stay safe, God bless you. Thank you again for all the work you do.
Okay. Happy New Year, Lynn. Thank you.
Happy New Year.